can tell a lot about a person by how they treat someone they believe is beneath them. In the quiet, expensive world of fine dining, where whispers are louder than shouts, and a single glance can carry the weight of a verdict, a young waitress was about to face a trial by fire. She thought she was just serving another entitled couple. She had no idea that in a shadowy corner booth, a man worth more than the entire city block was watching her every move. What happened next wasn't just a confrontation. It was a detonation that would expose the rotten truth of wealth and character and change her life forever. Stick around, because this isn't a fairy tale. It's a story about the day the masks came off. The Gilded Spoon wasn't a restaurant, it was a statement. Nestled in a quiet, cobblestoned corner of the city, it was a place where old money mingled with the brash new money tech crowd. The air itself seemed expensive, scented with truffle oil-aged leather and the faint, sweet perfume of entitlement. For Sophia Vance, it was just her Tuesday night shift. At 24, Sophia moved with a quiet efficiency that belied the storm of thoughts in her mind. She wasn't just a waitress. By day, she was a student of historical restoration. Her hands, which so delicately placed forks and knives, more comfortable with wood stain and fine grit sandpaper. She dreamed of saving forgotten pieces of history, of giving a voice back to antique furniture left to rot in dusty attics. The Gilded Spoon, with its exorbitant tips, was the fuel for that dream. It paid for her tuition, her specialized tools, and the tiny apartment she shared with a mountain of textbooks. She was a keen observer of people, a skill honed by years of service. She could read a table in seconds. The nervous young couple on their first fancy date, the stern business partners closing a deal, the lonely widower who came every Tuesday for the lobster bisque. Tonight, however, her focus was on Table 7. They had arrived like a minor weather event. He was Chadwick Harrington, a name he'd dropped 3 times since sitting down a junior vice president at some faceless investment firm. He wore a suit so sharp it looked like it could cut glass, and a watch that cost more than Sophia's car. She was his wife, Tiffany, a woman sculpted by Pilates and adorned in a constellation of tiny, glittering diamonds. She surveyed the restaurant not with appreciation, but with disdain, as if searching for flaws was her primary occupation. Is the Pellegrino imported from Italy or just bottled in New Jersey? Tiffany had asked, her voice a lazy, condescending drawl. It's imported directly from San Pellegrino. Termemam Sophia replied, her smile practiced and polite. We'll see. Chadwick had grunted, not looking up from his phone. From the moment they sat, they were a masterclass in subtle cruelty. They sent back the bread basket because the crust wasn't acoustically satisfying. They complained about a microscopic water spot on a wine glass. They spoke to Sophia not as a person, but as a function, an inconvenient necessity to facilitate their meal. Sophia handled it all with the grace of a seasoned professional. She smiled, she apologized, she was replaced, she endured. It was part of the job. The bigger the ego she'd learned, the bigger the tip. Usually. Unbeknownst to them, and indeed to Sophia, their little performance had an audience. In the restaurant's most discreet corner booth, almost swallowed by the deep shadows, sat Adriel Croft. To the casual observer, he was utterly unremarkable. He wore a simple, dark grey cashmere sweater and charcoal slacks. There was no flashy watch, no ostentatious jewelry. His hair was silvering at the temples, and his face was etched with the fine lines of someone who thought more than they spoke. He nursed a glass of Macallan 25, the only hint of his true status. Adriel Croft didn't just own a company, he owned industries. His firm, Croft Holdings, had its tendrils in everything from sustainable technology to commercial real estate. His net worth was a number with so many commas it looked like a typo. But Adriel had grown up with nothing, the son of a steel worker and a seamstress. He had built his empire on two pillars: relentless hard work and an almost supernatural ability to judge character. The latter was a skill he continually sharpened by observing the world from the ground up. He often dined alone in places like this, not for the food, but for the theatre of human interaction. Tonight his attention was completely captured by Table 7 and the young waitress serving them. He saw the Harringtons for what they were: brittle, insecure people who used their money as a shield and a weapon. But he was more interested in the waitress. He saw the flicker of frustration in her eyes, so quick that anyone else would miss it. He saw the way she straightened her spine after a particularly snide comment. He saw the intelligence in her gaze as she recommended a wine pairing, an intelligence the Harringtons completely ignored. He saw dignity, a quiet, resilient strength that was becoming rarer and rarer in the world. He took a slow sip of his scotch and continued to watch. The main course was yet to be served, and he had a feeling the real drama was just beginning. The tension at Table 7 was a low hum, a palpable vibration that Sophia could feel in her bones. She approached with their main courses, a perfectly seared filet mignon for Chadwick and a delicate Dover sole for Tiffany. She moved with practiced precision, her steps silent on the plush carpet. "The steak is to be medium rare," Chadwick announced without looking up, as if she might have forgotten in the 20-foot walk from the kitchen. "A true medium rare. Not a hint of medium." "Of course," Sir Sophia said, placing the plate before him. As she turned to serve Tiffany, Chadwick made a sudden, expansive gesture with his arm, pontificating about a deal he'd supposedly closed. His hand, heavy with a gold signet ring, collided with his full glass of expensive Cabernet Sauvignon. The glass tipped, sending a tidal wave of dark red liquid cascading across the pristine white tablecloth, splashing onto the sleeve of Tiffany's cream-colored silk blouse. A collective gasp rippled through the nearby tables. Tiffany shrieked, as if she'd been struck. "My blouse, this is Chanel. Do you have any idea how much this costs?" Chadwick immediately rounded on Sophia. His face, which had been smug moments before, was now a mask of theatrical fury. "Look what you did, you clumsy girl. You were careless. You just flung the plates down and knocked over my wine." Sophia froze, her heart pounding. She hadn't been within a foot of his glass. She had seen his arm move, seen the careless, arrogant flourish, but she also saw the entire front-of-house rule-book flash before her eyes. The customer is always right. "Sir, I believe your arm," she began, trying to keep her voice steady and respectful. "My arm!" He bellowed, his voice rising, drawing the attention of the entire dining room. "Are you accusing me? You're going to stand there and blame me for your incompetence. Mr. Henderson, the restaurant manager, a man whose spine was made of jelly when confronted with wealthy patrons, scurried over. Is there a problem here?" "Mr. Harrington, a problem," Tiffany scoffed, dabbing at her sleeve with a napkin, only smearing the stain. "This waitress just ruined my vintage Chanel blouse, and your excuse for a husband is trying to blame me," she corrected, glaring at Chadwick, then redirecting her fury back to Sophia. "She should be fired. I want her fired right now." Mr. Henderson looked at Sophia, his eyes pleading with her to just apologize, to fall on her sword, and appease the angry gods of Table 7. This was the script. This was how it always went. The server would grovel, the meal would be comped, and the rich patrons would leave feeling vindicated. But something inside Sophia snapped. It wasn't a false accusation. It wasn't a threat to her job. It was complete and utter dehumanization. The way they spoke about her as if she were a faulty appliance. The way they lied so easily, so casually, to protect their own fragile egos. All her pent-up frustration from years of smiling through insults of being treated as invisible reached a boiling point. She took a slow, deliberate breath. She looked not at Mr. Henderson, but directly at Chadwick, and then at Tiffany. Her voice, when it came out, was not loud, but it was clear and cold and carried through the now silent restaurant. "No," she said. The single word hung in the air, a shocking act of defiance. Mr. Henderson's jaw went slack. The Harringtons looked genuinely stunned. Sophia continued her gaze unwavering. "I will not be fired for something I did not do. I placed your plate on the table, Mr. Harrington. You were talking with your hands, and you knocked over your own glass. I saw it. The couple at table 9 saw it. And I suspect, if you were being honest with yourself, for even a moment, you know you saw it too." She then turned her attention to Tiffany. "I am very sorry that your blouse is stained, ma'am. It was a beautiful piece. But an accident caused by your husband does not give you the right to demand my livelihood. My name is Sophia, and I am a person. I am a student working my way through college to build a future for myself. This job is how I eat, how I pay my rent, and how I fund my education. It is not something you can dispose of on a whim because you're having a bad evening." Her voice didn't tremble. It was infused with a righteous certainty that was more powerful than any shout. "The value of your blouse does not exceed the value of my dignity. I will not apologize for your mistake." The silence in the restaurant was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop on the thick carpet. Diners were frozen forks halfway to their mouths. The kitchen staff had peeked through the service window, their eyes wide. Chadwick Harrington's face cycled through a series of colors from crimson red to a pasty white. He was a man who had never been spoken to, like this, certainly not by a waitress. He was utterly disarmed, his usual weapons of wealth and status rendered useless against the simple, unbreakable power of the truth. In the corner booth, Adriel Croft slowly placed his glass on the table. A small, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. He had seen 1,000 business negotiations, 100 corporate takeovers. He had witnessed generals and politicians command rooms, but he couldn't remember the last time he had seen a display of courage, so pure and so profound. The show was over. It was time for him to step onto the stage. Before Chadwick could recover enough to sputter out a coherent threat, a calm voice cut through the charged atmosphere. "She's absolutely right." Every head turned towards the corner booth. Adriel Croft rose slowly and stepped out of the shadows. He moved with an unhurried grace, his presence commanding the room without a single raised word. He walked over to table 7, his eyes not on the furious couple but on Sophia. "That was the most honest thing I've heard in this room all night," he said, his voice a quiet baritone. He gave her a slight respectful nod before turning his cool, analytical gaze upon the Harringtons. Chadwick, seeing only a plainly dressed older man, puffed out his chest. "And who the hell are you? This doesn't concern you, old man. Go back to your prune juice." Adriel's eyes narrowed slightly. "I was having a quiet dinner, but your performance was a bit too loud to ignore. I had a clear view of this table. I saw you, Mr. Harrington, knock over your own glass during a particularly enthusiastic story. The young lady is telling the truth." Tiffany sneered. "Oh, of course. You're probably a friend of hers. All you service people stick together, don't you?" Mr. Henderson, desperate to regain control, finally spoke up. "Sir, with all due respect, this is a private matter between my staff and our patrons." Adriel Croft turned his head slowly to look at the manager. "Mr. Henderson, isn't it? The Gilded Spoon is a tenant in this building, correct? The building at 412 Prescott Avenue." Henderson blinked, confused by the non sequitur. Yes, that's right. My real estate division, Croft Properties, owns this building. In fact, we own the entire block, Adriel said, plainly, as if commenting on the weather. He let the statement hang in the air for a moment. So in a way, you are my tenant. And these people he gestured to the Harringtons are guests in my property, which makes this very much my concern. The name Croft was like a switch being flipped. Chadwick's smug expression dissolved into one of dawning horror. His face went pale. He had seen pictures of the legendary reclusive billionaire Adriel Croft in Forbes and the Wall Street Journal, the man who was notoriously private, who could make or break companies with a single phone call. And he was standing right here, in a simple grey sweater, having witnessed his entire pathetic display. Chadwick's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Mr. Croft, I had no idea. I'm Chadwick Harrington from Sterling Wentworth Investments. It's an honor, sir. There was a misunderstanding. Adriel's gaze was like ice. There was no misunderstanding, Mr. Harrington. I understood perfectly. I saw a man of immense privilege and no class whatsoever bully a young woman who was simply doing her job with more grace than you or your wife have displayed all evening. He then turned to Tiffany, who looked as if she'd seen a ghost. And your Chanel blouse, madam. While I'm sure it is expensive, it appears the fabric has more integrity than the people wearing it. Send me the cleaning bill. My assistant will see to it. The dismissal was so total, so absolute, it was more insulting than any curse. He looked back at the terrified manager. Mr. Henderson, I will not have my establishments be a stage for this kind of behavior. Please present Mr. and Mrs. Harrington with their bill. For everything. The wine included. He paused. And please add a 20% service charge. I want it given directly to Sophia. After tonight, the Harringtons' reservation privileges at this restaurant are permanently revoked. The shock in the room was electric. Not only had the waitress been vindicated, but the powerful, wealthy couple had been unceremoniously thrown out by someone infinitely more powerful. Chadwick, utterly humiliated, fumbled for his wallet. He couldn't even look at Sophia. He paid the bill a bead of sweat, tracing a path down his temple, and he and his wife scurried out of the restaurant, leaving a wake of stunned silence. The other diners slowly began to murmur, then some began to quietly applaud. It was a soft, respectful applause, not for the drama, but for the justice they had just witnessed. Sophia stood frozen, trying to process the last 5 minutes. The world had tilted on its axis. The quiet man from the corner booth was Adriel Croft. He had defended her. He had seen her. As the commotion died down, Adriel approached her. The intimidating aura he had projected towards the Harringtons was gone, replaced by a quiet warmth. "Are you all right, young lady?" he asked. "My name is Sophia." She managed to say, her voice barely a whisper. "And yes, thank you. I don't know what to say." "You said everything that needed to be said," he replied, "and you said it perfectly. You have a spine, Sophia. That's a rare commodity." He reached into his pocket, and for a moment, Sophia thought he was going to give her a tip. Instead, he pulled out a slim, heavy business card. It was black with his name and a single phone number embossed in simple silver letters. "I believe your manager is about to make a decision about your employment here," Adriel said, glancing at the still flustered Mr. Henderson. "Regardless of what he decides, I'd like you to call this number tomorrow morning. I have a proposition for you. I think your talents are being wasted here." He placed the card in her hand. His touch was brief, but his eyes held hers for a moment longer, a look of profound seriousness in them. Then, with a final nod, he walked to the front settled his own bill with a discreet black credit card, and left the restaurant as quietly as he had arrived, leaving behind a stunned waitress, a chastened manager, and a story that would be whispered about within those walls for years to come. Sophia looked down at the card in her trembling hand. Adriel Croft, founder and CEO, Croft Holdings. What on earth could a man like that want with a waitress? The rest of Sophia's shift passed in a blur. Mr. Henderson, now a fawning sycophant, told her to take the rest of the night off with pay. He apologized profusely, praising her fortitude and integrity, the very qualities he was ready to sacrifice minutes earlier to appease the Harringtons. The other staff members looked at her with a newfound respect, a mix of awe and envy. The story of her confrontation and Adriel Croft's intervention spread through the restaurant like wildfire. But Sophia felt strangely detached from it all. She changed out of her uniform in a daze, her mind replaying the events over and over. She could still feel the weight of the business card in her pocket. It felt heavier than a simple piece of cardstock. It felt like the weight of a decision. Walking home through the cool city streets, the initial adrenaline began to fade, replaced by a gnawing anxiety. A proposition? What kind of proposition? The cynical part of her brain, the part hardened by years of dealing with entitled men, kicked into high gear. Was this some sort of strange, inappropriate advance? Was he a wealthy eccentric who got a thrill out of grand gestures? The idea that a man like Adriel Croft would be genuinely interested in her professionally seemed ludicrous. She was a waitress, a student. What could she possibly offer him? She spent a sleepless night, tossing and turning, the black card sitting on her nightstand like a silent challenge. By morning, exhaustion had given way to a fragile resolve. What did she have to lose? Her curiosity was a physical ache. If it was something untoward, she could hang up. If it was a prank, she'd know soon enough. But if it was real, the possibility was too big to ignore. At precisely 9:00 a.m., she took a deep breath, her heart hammering against her ribs, and dialed the number. She expected to be routed through a series of assistants and secretaries. Instead, a calm, familiar voice answered on the second ring. Adriel Croft. Sophia's own voice caught in her throat. Mr. Croft, this is Sophia Vance. From the restaurant last night. Ah, Sophia, I was hoping you'd call, he said, his tone warm and immediate. I trust you got home all right. Yes, thank you. Sir, I wanted to thank you again for what you did. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, he replied simply. Character should be defended and rewarded. Which brings me to my proposition. Are you free to meet this afternoon at Talis door and or Utulasa? Meet, yes, of course. Where my main office, Croft Tower on Sterling Avenue. I'll have security leave a pass for you at the front desk. We can talk more then. And that was it. The call ended. Croft Tower, the glittering 100-story monument of steel and glass that dominated the city skyline. Sophia had passed it 1,000 times, never imagining she would ever have a reason to step inside. She spent the next few hours in a state of panic. What did one wear to a meeting with a billionaire? All her clothes smelled faintly of either wood varnish or the restaurant's kitchen. She finally settled on her one interview outfit, a simple black dress, a clean blazer, and low heels. It was understated professional, and most importantly, it made her feel a little less like a waitress, and a little more like Sophia Vance, historical restorationist. The lobby of Croft Tower was like a cathedral to capitalism, soaring ceilings, polished marble floors, and a quiet hum of immense power. Sophia felt incredibly small and out of place. True to his word, a security guard had a visitor's pass waiting for her. As she was escorted to a private elevator, she felt the eyes of impeccably dressed employees on her, their faces a mixture of curiosity and confusion. The elevator opened directly into Adriel Croft's office on the top floor. It was not what she expected. There was no gaudy gold or ostentatious displays of wealth. The entire space was a testament to quiet, elegant taste. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking panorama of the city. The furniture was a mix of modern minimalism and stunning mid-century antiques. A beautiful Eames lounge chair sat in one corner, and a massive mahogany desk, clearly a vintage piece, dominated the room. Adriel Croft was standing by the window, looking out at the city he had in many ways built. He turned as she entered, a welcoming smile on his face. "Sophia. Thank you for coming. Please have a seat." She sat in one of the chairs opposite his desk, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. He didn't sit behind the desk, which she appreciated. Instead, he took the chair beside her, creating a sense of collaboration rather than hierarchy. "I'll get straight to the point," he began. "Last night, I saw someone with integrity, courage, and grace under pressure. Those are qualities I value above all others. They are qualities that cannot be taught in any business school. They are the bedrock of success. But that's not the only thing I saw." He paused, his eyes thoughtful. "When you were talking to the Harringtons, you mentioned you were a student. I had my assistant do a little research this morning. I hope you don't mind. Sophia Vance, top of your class in the Historical Preservation and Restoration program at the City University. Your professors describe you as having a preternatural talent for detail and a deep respect for craftsmanship. Is that accurate?" Sophia was stunned into silence. He had researched her. Yes, sir. That's what I'm studying." "Good," he said, a spark of excitement in his eyes. He stood up and walked over to a heavy oak door on the far side of the office, a door she hadn't noticed before. "I have a project, a very personal one. It's not a corporate role. It's not about spreadsheets or profit margins. It's about something more important. I need someone with a very specific skill set. But more than that, I need someone I can trust, someone with character." He unlocked the door and pushed it open, revealing a small private workshop. The air smelled of aged wood oil and turpentine. It was a craftsman's sanctuary. In the center of the room, under a single spotlight, sat a beautiful but damaged antique writing desk. It was a late 18th century piece, its mahogany wood marred by a long dark water stain, its intricate inlay partially missing, and one of its legs clearly repaired with a modern, ill-fitting piece of wood. This desk, Adriel said, his voice softening with a hint of emotion, belonged to someone very important to me. It has sentimental value beyond measure. But it's been neglected, damaged. He turned to her, his gaze intense. "My proposition is a test. I want you to look at this desk. Don't touch it. Just look. And then I want you to tell me everything about it. What you see. What's wrong with it. What it needs. And most importantly, what story it tells." Sophia's anxiety vanished, replaced by a surge of pure, unadulterated passion. This was her world. This was the language she spoke. She walked towards the desk, her heart no longer pounding with fear, but with the thrill of discovery. The billionaire, the tower, the strange circumstances, it all faded away. There was only her and a piece of history waiting to be read. Sophia approached the writing desk with a reverence she reserved for things that had outlived their makers. For a few moments, she simply stood, her eyes scanning its form. She didn't see a broken piece of furniture. She saw a life, a history. Adriel Croft remained by the door, watching her with an unreadable expression, his silence a form of permission. She began to walk a slow circle around the desk, her gaze sharp and analytical. Her professors had always said she had the eye, the ability to see beyond the surface, to read the scars and wrinkles of an object like a biography. After several minutes of silent observation, she turned back to Adriel. "It's a Hepplewhite," she began, her voice now filled with a quiet confidence. "American, probably from around 1790, maybe 1795. The tapered legs, the spade feet, the clean lines. It's a classic Hepplewhite design. The primary wood is mahogany, but the inlay work." She leaned closer, her eyes tracing the delicate patterns. "That's satinwood, and possibly a bit of ebony for the darker lines. It's exquisite work. Or it was." She pointed to the top. "The water damage is significant. It's a deep stain, which means it wasn't a quick spill. Something was left sitting on it, wet, for a long time. It penetrated the veneer and likely stained the substrate wood beneath. You can't just sand that out. You'd have to chemically lift the stain gently, layer by layer. It would be a painstaking process, and there's no guarantee you could remove it all without damaging the patina." Her gaze moved to the side. "The inlay is missing here on the right-hand drawer. It's a bellflower pattern, a common Hepplewhite motif. But it's not just that it's missing. Look at the edges," she gestured. "They're not sharp. They're worn smooth. This drawer was opened and closed thousands, maybe tens of thousands of times. The person who used this desk, they were right-handed. They used this drawer constantly." Adriel's expression remained neutral, but his eyes were fixed on her. Sophia then crouched down, examining the legs. "This is the most interesting part," she said, her voice filled with a genuine excitement. "3 of the legs have their original patina. You see the tiny nicks and scratches near the bottom. That's from centuries of use, of being bumped by feet, by cleaning tools. It's the story of the piece. But this one," she pointed to the poorly repaired back left leg, "this is a disaster." She didn't say it with judgment, but with the diagnostic tone of a doctor. "The wood doesn't match. It's a different species of mahogany, probably modern kiln-dried. The grain is all wrong. The color is off. It was attached with a modern wood glue and a steel screw. You can see the edge of the Phillips head if you look closely. The original would have been joined with hide glue and a mortise and tenon joint. This repair wasn't done by a craftsman. It was a quick fix, done by someone who cared more about function than form. They just wanted it to stand up straight. They didn't care about preserving its soul." She stood up and looked at the desk as a whole, once more a thoughtful frown on her face. Then her eyes lit up as she noticed something almost invisible. On the front edge of the desk, slightly to the left of the center, was a series of tiny parallel scratches, worn smooth with time. "And this?" she said, her voice barely a whisper. "This is my favorite part. These little scratches here. At first I thought they were just damaged, but look at the rhythm of them, the spacing. Someone sat here day after day, and they worked on something that required fine motor skills. They were a writer, maybe an artist or an architect, and they would brace their hand right here as they worked. Maybe they wore a ring or a bracelet that lightly scratched the wood over the years. This desk wasn't a showpiece. It was a partner. It was the heart of someone's creative life." She finally turned to face Adriel Croft, her analysis complete. To fix it properly, it would take months. You'd have to dismantle the bad repair source, a piece of period-appropriate mahogany, and replicate the original joinery. You'd have to painstakingly clean the entire piece, lift the stain, and then meticulously recreate the missing inlay. The goal isn't to make it look brand new. That would be a crime. The goal is to make it look like it was perfectly cared for its entire life. You erase the neglect, but you keep the history. You keep the story." She fell silent, suddenly conscious that she had been rambling lost in her own world. Her cheeks flushed. "I'm sorry, sir. I got carried away." Adriel Croft looked from the desk to her, and for the first time he smiled. It was a genuine, unguarded smile that transformed his entire face, erasing the years and the weight of his empire. "Carried away," he said, his voice thick with an emotion she couldn't quite place. "Sophia, you didn't get carried away. You just read the last 20 years of my wife's life in the scars of her favorite piece of furniture." He walked over to the desk and gently laid a hand on its surface right next to the water stain. "My wife Anna was an architect and a botanical illustrator," he said softly. "She worked at this desk every single day. She was right-handed, and she kept her favorite pens in that top right drawer. The water stain, that's from a vase of lilies I brought her. We had an argument, something stupid I can't even remember now. We went to bed angry. The vase leaked overnight. By the time we found it, the damage was done. We always said we'd get it fixed, but we never did. She passed away 2 years ago." He touched the poorly repaired leg. "And this happened when we were moving. A careless mover broke the leg. I was furious. I hired the first expert I could find, a man who promised a quick fix. He did this," he said with a note of disgust. "He butchered it. He silenced it." He looked at Sophia, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "I've had a dozen so-called antiques experts look at this desk. They told me what it was worth. They told me the type of wood. They gave me a price for repair. Not a single one of them told me its story. They saw an object. You saw her." The test was suddenly clear to Sophia. It wasn't about her technical knowledge. It was about something deeper. It was a test of her empathy, her perception, her soul. "I have a project for you," Sophia Adriel Croft said, his voice firm again, the moment of vulnerability passing. "A much bigger one than just this desk. Come with me." He led her out of the workshop and back to the panoramic window. He pointed down towards a sprawling, older brick building with a large glass roof nestled incongruously among the modern skyscrapers. "That was my wife's studio," he said. "Her real workshop. It's been locked up for 2 years. Untouched. I want to bring it back to life. I want to turn it into a foundation. The Anna Croft Foundation for Artisans. A place where young, talented craftspeople like you, woodworkers, weavers, metalworkers, restorers can have a space to learn and create funded completely so they don't have to choose between their passion and their rent." He turned to her, his gaze locking with hers. "I don't want to offer you a job as a restorer, Sophia. I want you to be the one to build it. I want you to be the founding director, to oversee the restoration of the building, to design the curriculum, to find the first class of students, to be its heart. I'm offering you a chance to stop restoring furniture and start restoring dreams. Her dream, and I suspect your own." Sophia felt as though the floor of the 100-story tower had fallen away, leaving her suspended in the impossible air of the moment. Director A Foundation. Her mind struggled to grasp the scale of what he was offering. It was a quantum leap from her reality of fighting for tips and studying late into the night. "Mr. Croft? Adriel," she corrected herself, finding her voice. I don't know what to say. I'm a student. I've never run anything bigger than a study group. I don't need an MBA, Sophia. I need a visionary. I need someone with passion and integrity," he countered gently. "I can hire people to handle the budgets and the paperwork. I need you for the soul of the place. You understand the value of craftsmanship of history. You understand that a thing's worth isn't just its price tag. That's a lesson most people in my world never learn. You already know it. You'll have the full backing of Croft Holdings. Any resource you need, any expert you want to consult, they're yours. You will build this from the ground up in Anna's image. He saw the hesitation and fear warring with the overwhelming hope in her eyes. This isn't charity, he added firmly. It's an investment. I am investing in you just as I would invest in a promising new technology or a piece of prime real estate. I am a good judge of character, Sophia. It's the true source of my wealth. And my judgment tells me you are one of the soundest investments I will ever make. The sincerity in his voice was absolute. He wasn't a billionaire playing kingmaker. He was a man trying to build a legacy for the woman he loved, and he believed for reasons she was only just beginning to understand that she was the only person who could do it. A wave of emotion washed over her gratitude, terror, and a profound sense of purpose. This was not just a job. It was the culmination of every dream she'd ever had handed to her in a way she could never have imagined. It was the answer to a prayer she hadn't even dared to speak. Yes, she whispered the word, feeling both tiny and monumental. Yes, I accept. A broad, relieved smile spread across Adriel's face. Excellent. My legal team will draw up a contract. But for now, let's consider this our handshake agreement. He extended his hand, and she took it. His grip was firm, a silent promise of the support he was offering. The following weeks were a whirlwind. Sophia, guided by a team of Adriel's most trusted executives, dove headfirst into her new role. She drafted a mission statement for the Anna Croft Foundation. She toured the dormant workshop, a magnificent light-filled space filled with her tools, unfinished sketches, and the lingering creative energy of a life well lived. She began the process of cataloguing everything, her hands tracing the same workbenches Anna had used. It felt like a sacred trust. She met with architects to plan the building's restoration, and with academics to design a curriculum that was both practical and inspiring. Adriel was true to his word. He gave her complete autonomy, stepping in only to offer advice or to effortlessly remove any bureaucratic obstacle that stood in her way. For the first time, Sophia wasn't just surviving. She was building. Meanwhile, the ripples from that night at the Gilded Spoon were still spreading. The story of the billionaire and the waitress became something of a local legend, whispered in restaurants and boardrooms across the city. And for the Harringtons, the consequences were just beginning. Chadwick Harrington's firm, Sterling Wentworth, had been trying for months to land a major contract with Croft Holdings' real estate division. It was the deal that was meant to cement Chadwick's career, to finally get him the senior partnership he so desperately craved. The day after the incident, he received a one-sentence email from Adriel Croft's office. Croft Holdings will not be engaging in business with individuals or firms who do not align with our core values of respect and integrity. All pending proposals are hereby rejected. The news hit Sterling Wentworth like a thunderbolt. When word got out why the lucrative Croft deal had been torpedoed, Chadwick became a pariah within his own company. His arrogance had always been tolerated because he brought in money. But now he was a liability. He had cost the firm millions and, worse, made them a laughingstock. His public humiliation was complete. Within a month, he was quietly forced to resign. Tiffany, who had built her social standing on her husband's perceived success, found her own world crumbling. The story, embellished with every telling, made her a caricature of the entitled rich wife. Invitations to charity galas dried up. Her friends stopped returning her calls. Her vintage Chanel blouse, now a symbol of her downfall, hung in her closet, the faint wine stain, a permanent reminder of the night their world unraveled. Their gilded cage had become a very real prison of their own making. One afternoon, about 2 months into her new role, Sophia was on site at the workshop discussing plans with a contractor. She was wearing work boots and jeans, her hair tied back in a messy bun, a smudge of brick dust on her cheek. She had never felt more alive. Her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. She answered, her voice businesslike. Sophia Vance. There was a moment of hesitation on the other end. Miss Vance? It's Chadwick Harrington. Sophia frozen. His voice was unrecognizable. Stripped of its arrogance, it was small and reedy. I know you have no reason to talk to me, he stammered, but I just wanted to apologize. For that night, there's no excuse for how I acted, how we acted. I was a fool, an arrogant fool, and I've paid for it. I've lost everything. Sophia listened, a strange sense of pity replacing the anger she once felt. He wasn't a monster. He was just a weak man who had been exposed. I accept your apology, Mr. Harrington, she said calmly. I hope you find a way to rebuild. Thank you, he whispered and hung up. She put the phone away, taking a deep breath of the dusty, promising air of the workshop. She wasn't thinking about Chadwick Harrington or his fallen fortunes. She was thinking about the work to be done, the students she would one day welcome into this space, and the legacy of a woman she had never met, but felt she knew intimately. The past was a story in the woods. Her focus was on the future she was now privileged to build. 1 year later, the Anna Croft Foundation for Artisans held its grand opening. The brick building had been meticulously restored, its historic character preserved while its interior was transformed into a state-of-the-art series of workshops. Light streamed through the massive glass ceiling, illuminating spaces for woodworking, metalsmithing, textile arts, and of course a dedicated studio for furniture restoration. The event wasn't the typical stuffy gala. At Sophia's insistence, it was a celebration of craftsmanship. Instead of champagne and canapes, guests were served food from local artisans. Instead of a string quartet, a young luthier, one of the foundation's first scholarship recipients, played a guitar he had built himself. The walls were adorned not with famous paintings, but with the work of the inaugural class of students, a dozen talented, hopeful young people who, like Sophia, had dreams bigger than their bank accounts. Sophia stood at a podium looking out at the crowd. She wasn't wearing a waitress uniform or a borrowed blazer. She wore a simple, elegant dress, her confidence radiating not from the clothes, but from a deep-earned sense of self-worth. She saw Adriel Croft in the front row, his eyes shining with pride. She saw her old professors beaming. She even saw Mr. Henderson from the Gilded Spoon, who had sent a lavish floral arrangement and a card expressing his profound admiration. A year ago, Sophia began her voice, clear and strong. I was serving tables, dreaming of a day I might be able to afford my own workshop. I believed that my passion for history and craftsmanship was a quiet, personal pursuit, something I would have to fit in around the edges of my real life. I learned that night that the most valuable things, dignity, integrity, kindness, are not commodities to be bought or sold. They are foundations upon which real lives are built. She gestured around the beautiful, bustling hall. This place is a testament to that idea. It is a legacy to Anna Croft, a brilliant woman whose spirit fills every corner of this building. But it is also a promise that talent will be nurtured regardless of circumstance. A promise that the slow, patient, and beautiful work of human hands will always have value in a world obsessed with speed and disposability. A promise that a single act of standing up for what is right can change not just one life, but many. Her gaze found Adriel's. I was given an opportunity that night, but the truth is, we all have that opportunity every day. To see the person behind the uniform, to choose kindness over cruelty, to recognize the hidden potential in others and in ourselves. After the speeches, Adriel joined her by the restored Hepplewhite desk, which now held a place of honor in the Foundation's entrance hall. It looked magnificent. The water stain was gone, the inlay was perfect, and the new leg was an identical, masterfully aged match to the others. It looked not new, but cherished. She would have loved this, Adriel said, his voice thick with emotion. She would have loved you. I feel like I know her, Sophia replied, placing her hand on the smooth, warm wood. She tells a wonderful story. Adriel smiled. You have a new story to write now, Sophia. We both do. Sophia Vance, the former waitress, was no longer just restoring old furniture. She was helping to build new futures. She had found her place, not by serving the wealthy and powerful, but by standing her ground, by honoring her own worth, and by recognizing the story hidden just beneath the surface, in the grain of a forgotten desk, and in the heart of a quiet billionaire who was simply looking for someone with a spine. And in doing so, she built a legacy far more beautiful and enduring than any piece of polished mahogany. And so, a single defiant no in a hushed restaurant became the first word in a beautiful new chapter of Sophia Vance's life. This story is a powerful testament to the fact that our true worth is not measured by our salary or social standing, but by the strength of our character in moments of trial. While the Harringtons built their lives on a fragile foundation of arrogance, Sophia built hers on the bedrock of integrity, and it was that foundation a wise man like Adriel Croft chose to invest in. Her incredible journey from serving tables to directing a foundation reminds us that the universe is always watching. You never truly know when a simple act of courage, of kindness, or of standing up for your own dignity will intersect with a life-changing opportunity. We all have that power within us in every interaction, every single day. What does character mean to you? Have you ever seen someone's true colors shine through in a difficult situation? Share your own experiences and thoughts in the comments below. Your story could be the one that inspires someone else today. If this narrative moved, you please show your support by hitting the like button, sharing it with your friends, and subscribing for more true stories that explore the incredible power of human decency. Thank you for watching.